What's up? What's up? What's up? It's your boy Domuto. We back on another video today. We're watching Charlotte Saiyan, Shell Prime versus Good Shell and Gohan. Oh, I'm sorry. Shell Prime versus the Saladverse. So Shell Prime versus Good Shell and Gohan mirror match. Okay, they're gonna be watching episode 8 and episode 9 today, and yeah, the story's been pretty good so far. And I'm just ready to get into it today, man. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, and let go.
Kakamasu slips away on his own, informally leaving the continuity patrol. It might be better if he goes his own way, tries to do things his own way. Whatever the continuity patrol is doing right now, it's clearly not working, and Kakamasu wants to fix that. This is episode 8 of Cell Prime. Kakamasu wonders what his next move should be. He thought his fuse power would be more than enough for this, but clearly it isn't working. He has contemplated unfusing. I mean, he has many ways to do so, but he never actually did it because he thought the power from fusion might actually be better than what was lost from it. Sure, it wasn't a massive increase in power, especially because Zamasu wasn't really comparable to Kakarot, but still, the increase in power was pretty notable at the very least. For now, the Kakarot side of this fusion is at least keeping him somewhat grounded, but the Zamasu side realizes that he needs more to defeat Cell, and that's the part that's kind of going rogue. That part's becoming more powerful, even affecting the Kakarot side. Granted, there's not really sides to this fusion, it's a brand new personality, a brand new person, but the two fusees do have an effect. And the Zamasu part of him here, it's definitely changing his outlook. He's going to go to any length to defeat Cell Prime. Speaking of Cell, he has to figure out what his next moves are. He has complete control over reality hopping now. He was even able to use it in that instant, just to escape that fight. Of course, he's a bit disappointed in himself, the fact that he couldn't get out of that. But he was kind of at a disadvantage. He was against a version of Goku and Vegeta that were in their peak forms, with centuries of extra experience, plus Cooler, who he didn't really know anything about, who clearly had a lot of power, as well as that version of Kakarot with the weird greenish-blue hair. Those two were incredibly strong. Combine that with the magic of the Goku in that universe as well as Kakamasu, and it was pretty much a recipe for disaster. Although, Cell at least takes solace in the fact that it took all 5 of them together, plus basically what amounts to a sneak attack, since he didn't know about the others coming there. It took all that to nearly defeat him, and he still was able to escape. But still, it does kinda irk him that he had to escape here. But he looks down at the continuity ring on his hand. This is essentially a better time ring. Yes, it uses a lot of power, and it basically returned him to a checkpoint. He had to use his own power to basically fuel this. But he wants to try and kick it up a notch and see if it could let him go anywhere else. He does have to be careful though. This ring has 2 functions. 1, it allows him to seamlessly travel through realities and explore new ones before he even actually goes there, so he basically knows where he's going. But 2, it could also basically set checkpoints for him, almost like a video game of sorts. However, that requires a domain with his complete control. He was actually brought back to the continuity that he contained. Since he had complete control over that one, he used that as a checkpoint, although it did basically return him to where he was at that point in time. So it does set him a few months back in power, but he's amazed that worked because that's a really good last resort. And he can't just set this aimlessly. Otherwise, he would have just done it in Vegeta's universe. Even just setting those checkpoints, for lack of a better word, that takes a lot of power in and of itself, plus all the control over the continuity that he's in. There was no point wasting more power setting it in some other continuity that didn't matter to him, and it was better to keep it this far back because this makes him a lot more untraceable. Not to mention, this is only really a last resort for him. He did this to avoid being erased because if he stayed there, he would have been erased. Not just killed, but completely destroyed by the Hakais. Anyways, he hopes he doesn't have to use that again. But now to test the other functions of the ring, which he has used a little bit, but he wants to try more of. He looks for a new place to travel to.
Okay.
The best part about this ring is it's a lot more covert than his old method of travel. Because he's not forcibly breaking reality to travel, it's basically untraceable, especially because it doesn't split timelines like he used to. It's just like the time ring. With that, you could travel to different timelines without splitting the timelines, unlike a time machine which actually will, at least when you first use it. So, with the continuity ring, he could hop into a different continuity, and it's basically left as is. There's no second timeline made, which hasn't really been an issue so far, but it was a really big issue when he fought that one version of Goku. Although, he wonders how many alternate timelines he created by doing this. Hopefully there's nothing out there lurking about. An old enemy that he fought that's in another timeline that split off from the original one. But the chances of that are probably pretty low, right? Well, he finds a new continuity, and it's one that's really interesting because it seems like there's another version of himself in it. Naturally, he wants to check this out. That seems awesome. He even found a few other continuities with him in it, including one where he was apparently reincarnated like that one Frieza reincarnation. That's interesting, so maybe he'll visit that later. But for now, he's more interested in this other version of Cell because it really is him. It's just another version of him, except with different events in his life. But he can tell that this other Cell is powerful. When he travels there, he ends up on Beerus' planet in Universe 7, and it seems like a fight just happened here. He sees 2 very familiar faces, one being himself, and Gohan. Or at least what he assumes is Gohan. He looks very different and he's in a new form that Cell hasn't really seen before. Goku and Vegeta are also there watching on the side. that Goku feels weaker than normal for some reason, but the Vegeta feels pretty strong, and more importantly, the Gohan and Cell in this timeline feel really strong. Naturally, they're pretty confused to see another Cell here, but not immediately alert because, the Cell with them is actually good. The continuity he traveled to is one where Cell ended up surviving, eventually becoming a part of the group, but at the end of the day, he still is Cell. And Cell Prime gets right down to business. He did have a reason to come here, but depending on Cell's answer, it's going to affect what he does here. First, he basically tries to pull a Goku Black, trying to get the other Cell to join him. It's a long shot, and he knows this isn't going to work. Of course, the other Cell denies this. He doesn't even know who Cell Prime is, and just by looking at him, he could tell they're very different versions of Cell. Well, it was at least worth a shot. He doesn't know what he would have done with that other Cell anyways, besides maybe forcing him to fuse into him, but maybe he could still do that, because the main reason he came here is to fight the other Cell. He wanted to see if he truly is the strongest Cell in any existence. Of course, he has to be. But it should be pretty fun fighting himself. And if he wins this fight, he could take that Cell's power for himself too. Imagine that, merging with another
shit.
Cell.
Come on, Cell.
They are part Namekian after all, and they could just fuse that way. Whis actually steps in, a little bit concerned. Now, of course, as an angel, he can't actually fight here. But at the request of Lord Beerus, he heals Gohan and Cell, who just got out of their own fight. And they actually do grow from this too. And he warns them to be careful. They don't know who this Cell is, and Whis is going to look into it. Fine with them. The two of them power up, with Gohan showing his form, Final Gohan, a godly evolution of his beast form. It's Cell showcasing a very familiar Ultra Instinct. Cell Prime chuckles at this. It's basically like looking in the mirror, except he doesn't have all the same abilities. But this should make it really fun, fighting another Ultra Instinct user. And not just any Ultra Instinct user, because he's fought those before. He's fighting himself. So for this battle, he's going to actually try something a little bit different. He does need more practice with these powers too. And he tries to take notes from that Goku he fought last time. He wants to use Ultra Instinct subconsciously, and try to combine it with something else. His eyes briefly flash red, and then a purple aura surrounds him. He summons the power of Ultra Ego, but also tries to use Ultra Instinct to control his movements. Of course, the two of these forms are pretty conflicting, but he's not using Ultra Instinct as a form. He's trying to use it as a technique here. Granted, it still kind of conflicts. But with how much practice Cell has had with Ultra Instinct, he basically has perfect mastery over it by now. To the point where even if he's using something like Ultra Ego, his body still reacts as if it were using Ultra Instinct. It's so used to it that it's ingrained within him, almost even ingrained in his base form, without even thinking about it. Which is how it works after all. This is going to be fun. And this is basically the birth of a new evolution of Cell Prime's main form. He guesses this is Ultra Prime Cell. It's a combination of Ultra Ego with the technique Ultra Instinct.
Ultra Prime Cell is
enhanced
nasty.
by magic, constantly growing stronger thanks to pure progress. And of course, with the analysis of Cerulean Red Eyes. A large-scale battle begins. Nothing new for Gohan and Cell from this timeline. But the other Cell, the good one, he's still pretty confused about what's happening here. Why is there another version of himself? Clearly this one didn't go through the same life events that he did. And Cell Prime says he's right on target. He didn't even awaken at the same time as him. From what he assumes, the Cell that he's fighting is actually the one from the other timeline. The first one that showed up. And he sees what happened here. Interesting. Not only is he surprised to see that other version of Cell survived, but also the fact that he's nearly good now. Actually, it's safe to say he is good. He's fighting alongside Gohan. But the good Cell doesn't let this distract him. Actually, he taunts the other Cell too. With him being the embodiment of perfection. That implies that whatever isn't him, it's not perfect. So sure, the Cell Prime guy might be powerful, but there can only be one perfect Cell.
Okay, talk your
and
shit.
It's going to be the
talk
good one
shit.
from this timeline. Fascinating words. But Cell Prime assures them that they're underestimating him. As the battle continues on, Cell Prime is having a lot of fun, especially learning more about these two fighters. He's never seen a Gohan like this, nor a Cell like this for that matter. And going back to what he said about fusing with this other Cell, he wonders how that would go if he went to other universes and did this. Of course, if he wants more power, the entire time he could have just gone to get other sets of Super Dragon Balls and wish for power, but for him, he doesn't like that. There's no fun in that. It would be so easy, especially now with the continuity ring, just to hop into different continuities and get all the Super Dragon Balls there, wishing for more power. Actually, just one set with infinite power could be enough. But again, where's the fun in that? Cell lives for the fun of battle. He likes a challenge. He likes testing his power. What use is there in that if he's just going to wish for that power? He'll have no one to use that power against, and the journey itself won't be fun either. Just searching for a set of Dragon Balls? Where's the fun in that? Which is why he's glad that he's encountered this other Cell. Glad that they could do this here. And as the fight rages on, it becomes very clear to Cell and Gohan. This other version of Cell is clearly far above them. They're still completely dumbfounded on who this guy is and why he's here in general. But Cell Prime also knows he probably has limited time. Thankfully, it seems the gods in this reality aren't aware of the continuity patrol. He's only really seen that in a few realities, so it's good here because it buys him some time. But soon enough, Whis will definitely figure out what's going on. And probably will be able to contact the continuity patrol. Once he reaches out to someone above him, maybe. So Cell Prime thinks he's on the clock. Which he is. And it kind of irks him too because he does want to finish this battle. He wants to see it all the way through and he wants to have fun here. He wants to get a good test of power fighting his own self. even if it's a weaker alternate version of him. And he questions his other self too, saying that he could be much stronger if he wasn't like this. Same goes for Gohan too. Of course, he knows that guy's a lost cause. He and Goku, for that matter, they're always pure of heart and just too soft. Especially from what he saw of the Gohan in his own timeline, he even slacked off. Maybe it's different here, but still. Although he's just more surprised about the other Cell. If Cell Prime ever became good like him, he wouldn't have had this power. He obtained this power by doing what he wants and fighting who he wants. The other Cell should too, especially with that level of power, the multiverse, all the timelines around him, all the continuities around them. It's theirs for the taking.
But he don't want to do that, Cell.
Too far gone to see that. But the good Cell says that's ironic. He grew strong exactly because of that, and he would have never thought that would have happened. And from what he could tell, this other Cell is completely different from him. The only reason he's as strong as he is because of when he was born, basically. The good Cell never had that same advantage in life. Cell Prime, he was born with different DNA, born at a different time, born in a different continuity with different things happening.
Talk shit.
And while Cell Prime might take pride in that power, the other Cell taunts him. That power's not his own.
I don't know
He
this
just got
story.
lucky.
The
It's a
little
product
Cell,
of his
the other Cell.
circumstance. And no matter how much power he ever obtains, he says it won't ever feel like his. And despite knowing basically nothing about Cell Prime, he's right. That's exactly the case here. Cell Prime's power came from when he was born, how he was born, how he emerged, and stealing the power from other people too. Barely any of his power came from his own training. But this other Cell, it came from hard work. And it does touch a nerve with Cell Prime. But before he could fight back, something weird happens. He just vanishes, pulled away by something. Almost like a wormhole appears behind him and pulls him into it. What the hell's going on here? He wants to get back to fight that other Cell, especially after being taunted like that. Is this the continuity patrol's doing? No, it's something else. He ends up in a new continuity, and he looks at his continuity ring and it clearly wasn't that did it. It was some sort of external force. It seems like he's in Universe 7, but on some unnamed planet, and he senses a power near him, and then hears a voice. With the voice saying he was trying to find somebody else. As Cell looks over at him, he sees what appears to be another version of Goku, or Kakarot for that matter because of the Saiyan armor, but he looks vaguely different. What he's facing is a villain from Kakarot 2's past. It's Turles.
Turles?
Cell wasn't the
My fault,
only one that
Turles.
broke continuities
Turles.
and split timelines. Obviously, in Kakarot 2's own time, he did the same thing too. And unknowingly, he did create some separate timelines. Where Cell finds himself right now is a timeline where Turles actually won, and continued to grow stronger. Ironically enough, the Turles in this timeline, he was basically trying to do the same thing that Cell Prime's doing, traveling to other timelines by brute forcing it. And he didn't expect to find an opponent like this. He doesn't even know who Cell Prime is. But Turles isn't going to complain. He can tell this guy's powerful, and it still should be pretty fun. An ominous aura flares up around Turles. Cell's facing a completely unknown villain. One who derived power from the fruit of the Tree of Life. First planets, then stars. And now in this timeline where he won, galaxies, next the entire universe, and maybe continuities beyond that too. This is Cell's next opponent, Majin Turles the Gluttonous.
Oh, shit.
And this is where we'll leave off for now. What'd you guys think about?
Okay.
Cell stares down his oddly
Cell Prime versus Turles and the Gluttonous.
familiar Saiyan
Whatever that
foe.
mean.
He definitely does seem to have a lot of power, and interestingly enough, he found Cell the same way Cell was trying to find other continuities. So maybe the two of them have a lot more in common than he thinks, even though he knows nothing about this guy. At the very least, this should be a fun battle. Welcome to episode 9 of Cell Prime. Turles starts the battle off with the evil Saiyan. Cell is pretty intrigued by this form because usually with Saiyans, he expects some sort of different hair color, but no, his hair's just black. Although his aura is clearly very different, and his hair's longer too, so he supposes it suffices. The two start battling, and Cell could take on his evil Saiyan form, which does impress Turles a lot. By now, his evil Saiyan form has grown so much that it can contend with gods. It still isn't his strongest form, but impressive nonetheless. He wouldn't have expected a random person to be able to handle it. And Cell's a bit offended by this. What, he's holding back? He did all that to break through continuities and he's not even going to show his full power? What a shame. So Turles powers up once more, showing off his infernal Saiyan form, an evolution of evil Saiyan. This is the second stage of his power, and it's also grown ever since he's continued planting trees of might everywhere. Granted, he's already made the ultimate fruit with Boo's power in it, but he still does want to test out his other forms. It's been a while since he got to use these in battle. And if he's not going to be fighting someone like Kakarot, he needs something to pass the time after all. Cell shows off a bit more of his strength but doesn't pull out his full power just yet. He does want to gauge Turles' strength after all, especially because he doesn't know who he is. But from what he hears, this guy knows Kakarot. By any chance, does his Kakarot have some sort of green-haired form? Yeah, exactly that actually. Interesting. He doubted it was any other Kakarots. And considering he knows that one was able to break continuities on his own, it makes sense that this Turles is affiliated with him somehow. Funny enough, Cell says he just saw that Kakarot. And while he is powerful, Cell thinks he could beat him in a 1v1 pretty easily in fact. And it's starting to make sense to him too. He realizes that this Turles is from a timeline where he actually won. And because of all this, he wants Turles to stop holding back. Entertain him, show him his full power. He's gotta have something else beyond Infernal Saiyan, right? Well, sort of. His form has the same look, but the colors of it start changing, with his skin and eyes changing too. This form looks very similar to Infernal Saiyan, but it's very clear that it's not. While in Infernal Saiyan, Turles summons his Majin power. This is what he used to defeat Kakarot, and this is what he'll use to defeat Cell here too. He's glad to finally have found an opponent this strong after so long. He's been continuing to grow even stronger and stronger, trying to break into other continuities and take them over too, making them his own domain. He also has been looking for other opponents, and finally, after all this time, he's gotten what he wanted. The two clash, breaking through thousands of realities at once as they do so. This is nothing new for them, but the speed at which they do so, it's chaotic, it's reckless. They barely even exist in these realities for a bit because of how fast they're going through them. Despite knowing nothing about each other, Turles and Cell share something in common. The desire for a strong battle like this, a way for them to use their full power. Uninhibited, fighting with nothing held back. And most importantly, a 1v1. Because Cell's gotten jumped by a few people before, and it's not really as fun when they're trying to use all their abilities at once. He's confident in his power.
I mean, you need to get jumped, nigga.
He knows when he's walking into his setup. But this is a battle that he's been longing for. Surprisingly enough, this Turles guy can even use magic abilities too. Clearly he's no average Saiyan. He's not just all raw power. It must be that Majin side.
It's the average
They
warrior.
have an all-out battle. But amidst the fight, they feel some other presence nearby. Which is strange because at the speed they're moving, there's no way anyone can keep up with them, unless they're teleporting instantly. But a sword then pierces through Turles' chest, cutting right through him. He turns around seeing an unfamiliar face, but Cell recognizes it immediately. Floating there behind Turles with his hand formed into a sword,
Oh, shit.
it's Kakamasu. Now, this is no problem for Turles. He simply regenerates it, with Turles asking for him to not interrupt the fight, holding up a hand, blasting him to oblivion. Which does destroy Kakamasu's body, but he pretty much instantly comes back. This is interesting. He's not supposed to have regeneration. Cell asks what he's done to himself. Kakamasu's taken matters into his own hands. The Continuity Patrol hasn't been effective, so he's doing things his own way now. And the first thing he did was seek out the Super Dragon Balls, wishing for immortality. That's going to help him fight Cell without injuring himself. But Cell doesn't want this 1v1, and he's pretty annoyed at someone interrupting it. He's already had enough battles where he's gotten jumped by multiple people. So he simply holds a hand out, trying to erase Kakamasu, but it doesn't work. And Kakamasu says he knew Cell had that ability. Now, Hakai's wouldn't even be a concern, but erasure would be kind of a concern. He doesn't know if Cell can completely erase things as effectively as Zeno, but he probably can at this point. So, just to be safe, he also wished for immortality to that too. With the time ring and however many Super Dragon Ball sets he needs, none of this is an issue. Although, he only made these 2 wishes. He did have to be careful after all, because if he wished for infinite power as well, he knows the Continuity Patrol would have gone after him and attacked him.
Right.
But with this, they're not going to know he wished for immortality. That's insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Besides, his current power is good enough anyways, and he's improved it naturally. Although, he is surprised that Cell resorted to this. What? Is he getting scared? Cell's honestly surprised that he didn't try to defuse either. But Kakamasu says that's pointless now. He needs the power to defeat Cell after all. And Turles is confused.
That nigga
also
was
a
so
little bit
embarrassed that he got his
annoyed.
ass whooped.
He doesn't want some random intervening in his fight. But it does interest him because apparently that's a Kai fuse at some version of Kakarot. Weird. But actually, now that he thinks about it, that could make things more interesting. Kakamasu turns to Turles and says he won't spare him either. With Kakamasu entering the battlefield, a 3-way fight begins between Turles, Kakamasu, and Cell, all drawn here by Turles, the Saiyan who ate the universe, the immortal Supreme Kai of Time, fighting against the ultimate perfect life form, Cell Prime. Kakamasu is clearly disadvantaged in terms of power. In terms of raw strength, the other two have him beat. However, he is immortal and has the best magical abilities of all of them, although the other two are pretty good with magic too. The 3 even try to absorb each other's power, all using the same type of magic, counteracting it. With the 3 of them all doing this at once, they each simply cancel each other out, exerting so much power that it shatters the reality that they're in, sending them to another one. The 3 of them enter an all-out battle. Now, Kakamasu tries his best to not destroy anything around him. He still has some sort of standards, but at the same time, he needs to do anything to stop Cell Prime. Any damage that he does now, it could simply be restored. Of course, he'll have to use the Super Dragon Balls in each individual continuity to do so, but
Right.
that won't be a problem for him. Cell Prime is a bigger threat than anything. The Continuity Patrol will see it and will agree with him. But the Patrol is watching pretty closely, especially now with his involvement. At some point, the 3 stop fighting. There's another power approaching. Great. Who is this now? And Kakamasu recognizes it immediately. It took him long enough to get involved. A 4th warrior appears. Well, also the 5th and 6th, but they're just watching. The strongest patrolman, Piccolo, appears, with Cooler and Kakarot 2 nearby, there to watch alongside him. He congratulates everyone here. Now the threat is so big that it's his problem. Usually he handles other big things, but Cell Prime's kind of moved up the priority list. Especially now with Kakamasu getting involved, they're not just going to stand by as a patrolman goes rogue. Kakamasu's being far too reckless after all. So Piccolo's not only here to stop the other 2, but to stop Kakamasu. Not kill him, just stop his rampage.
Gotcha.
Piccolo's mainly here for him. Now, Piccolo still hasn't fully regained his power. Before, he had powers so great that he could basically rewrite anything. There's probably people in other continuities that will try to accomplish the same things as him,
Okay.
but that's what he's there for, to stop that same sort of stuff, stopping anyone from becoming that strong. But since he overwrote his own power permanently, he's not going to be doing the same things that he did before. He was able to manipulate everything on a whim, just like Super Shenron, and he was unrestricted by continuity. And while his power isn't to that level right at the moment,
Right.
he still does have great power and magical abilities, and he can still grant wishes. They're still bound by continuity, but they can affect him. So sure, he can't just wish people to be erased and stuff, especially someone as strong as this. But he does have other tricks up his sleeve. And Cell welcomes this, a 1v1v1v1. To try and entice Piccolo to join, he launches a powerful blast at the warrior, expecting him to power up, but no, he doesn't. Piccolo simply stays in base, and he gets decimated. Nothing's left of him.
Damn,
What?
Piccolo.
That was the strongest warrior that he was supposed to fight? He died just like that? That can't be. And Cell's right. It wasn't just that. Piccolo then starts regenerating, wishing for himself to come back. You see, he's not exactly immortal, since that kind of stuff doesn't entice him, but effectively he is. He can't use infinitely powerful wishes to affect others, but he can use them to affect himself. Right then and there, just before Cell's blast hit, he wished to be fully healed, which does kind of suck because now he has a cooldown on the wishes. But it's a good way to display his power to Cell. Now he knows what he's dealing with. Turles then tries to steal some of Piccolo's power with magic, trying to absorb it from him, but Piccolo simply counters with his own magic. Does he think that party trick's gonna affect him after what he just did against Cell? That's child's play for him. What a show-off. A dragon-shaped aura flares up around Piccolo, and while he's busy powering up, Turles tries to take this as an opportunity. With everyone distracted, he then focuses on Kakamasu, extending a piece of himself out like Majin Buu, trying to absorb all of Kakamasu's power, making it his own. But he's not nearly quick enough, especially with Piccolo there. Piccolo then simply vanishes from sight, and faster than an instant, despite Turles having already absorbed Kakamasu, he separates the two of them with ease, then freezes Turles with one hand, and Kakamasu with another. He then glares over at Cell Prime to freeze him, but he's gone. And Piccolo chuckles to himself a bit. He expected that. Cell Prime clearly knows when he's cornered, and it must have pained him to leave a fight like that. It must have really hurt his ego. He then looks over at Kakamasu, asking if he'd like to be unfused. He could do that right here and now. It's pretty easy for someone like him. Force Spirit Fission is nothing to him, even for a Kai like them. But Kakamasu says he needs his power. Although Piccolo thinks it's too much. Clearly it's just hurting him, if anything. Turles is barely able to break free from Piccolo's grasp, trying to attack him, but then someone steps in to stop him, and his jaw drops. In front of him, he sees Kakarot too. This isn't the same exact Kakarot that he fought. He is from a separate timeline after all. But they did have the same beginning, and up to a certain point, their stories did go the same. As far as he's concerned, the person in front of him is the Kakarot that he knows. And the same goes for Kakarot too. This is the Turles that he knows. Kakarot smirks. Long time no see. And Kakarot asks Piccolo if he could fight Turles for a bit. He's got the Cell Prime stuff under control, doesn't he? And Piccolo says it'll be fine. He's gonna take Kakamasu back to the Time Nest too. He'll let Turles and Kakarot have their little reunion, and he expects Kakarot to come back soon. Cooler's also watching nearby too, remembering Turles from his own encounter with Kakarot. He did have to fight him briefly after all.
Right.
You know, he's gonna stay here and watch to make sure everything goes okay. Besides, they do need to deal with this threat after all, so despite it being personal for Kakarot, this is something the Continuity Patrol needs to handle anyways because of Turles breaking all these continuities at once again. Piccolo's gonna go and handle Cell. He knew that he'd leave amidst all that chaos, but it's fine. He'll be able to track him down again. But once more he reminds Kakamasu, the whole reason he was here in the first place was because of him going rogue. So they still will need to deal with that after all. And Kakamasu tells Piccolo to not play around with this. Cell Prime's already grown far too strong, and he's still being reckless. What they've done so far isn't enough to stop him. Even with all the other people they've recruited too, it's still not doing anything. They need to do more. And Piccolo tells him not to worry. He promises this will work, especially because Cronoa finally assigned him to handle this. Everyone else has grown strong enough to handle Piccolo's other work, and Cell's grown so strong that he's the top priority now. Piccolo and Kakamasu leave, returning to the Time Nest, as Cooler watches the two Saiyans fight. Turles is glad to see Kakarot once more, growing this strong, and Kakarot says he thinks the same. He wouldn't have thought he'd get to encounter Turles again. Although, he is a bit disappointed. He's disappointed that Turles tried to steal his foe, because Cell Prime was going to be his opponent, and Turles laughs it off. It looks like they have only one way to settle this. Whoever wins this battle gets to fight Cell later on. And you know what? Kakarot agrees with those conditions. He defeated Turles once, and it won't be an issue defeating him again. Especially with his power now. Turles says it's kind of funny. He was about to say the same exact thing to Kakarot. As the two begin their battle, Cell continues his escape, trying to get as far away as possible, masking his presence in the process too. All of this is giving him an idea though. That three-way battle was pretty fun. And there is an idea that he's had for a while, but he's never actually pursued it. It involved the Cell games. He would love to have some sort of Cell games of his own, but first, he does sense someone following him and needs to deal with that. Honestly, he expected this presence to join them in the battle, and surprisingly enough, Turles didn't even notice it. Maybe even Kakamasu. Cell must have better perception than them. But throughout all those continuities, something was following them. And he wants that person to finally come out, just so Cell could deal with him and get that out of the way. And you know, it's pretty interesting. From all the timelines Cell split, Cell only fought one other villain from a timeline that he personally split. Of course, Turles comes from a split timeline, but that was
Right.
Kakarot and Turles' fault, not Cell's. And sure, Cell's not splitting timelines on accident anymore, but he's surprised that he's faced no other warriors from split timelines. But now, it may finally be the time. Cell may have birthed an opponent just like him and hadn't even realized it, and it's been so long that it completely escaped his thoughts. He starts putting the pieces together. How could he have forgotten this? This whole time, the opponent he was looking for, it was right in front of him.
Okay.
It was someone that he's fought.
Who you
someone
talking
he's
about? Who you
known
talking about?
Someone who became a copycat,
Okay.
a mirror match to him. Even though Cell has fought another version of Cell before, that wasn't a true mirror to him. What he's about to face is going to be his true rival, someone he completely forgot about, someone he didn't expect at all. Way back in one of Cell Prime's first battles, he ended up splitting a timeline, and while one of the timelines got ruined, the one that rose from it gave birth to a new villain, one who knows all about Cell, and one who's grown strong enough to finally trap him.
Mamura?
Cell arrives in an empty continuity. The patrol shouldn't find him here, as long as they don't break into other realities. And he waits. A portal opens in front of him, and a familiar face peers through. And after this long journey, Cell faces his ultimate opponent, one who's just like him, Moro Prime. This is where we'll leave off
Oh,
for now.
shit.
What'd you guys think about this part? What's gonna happen next time? Leave your thoughts.
Boy, everybody want to smoke with Cell. Everybody want to smoke with Cell. All right. But let's see he got it. Let's see, man. I'm ready to see the next part, man. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time, man. Oh, shout out to Saladverse.